My son told me I contribute nothing valuable, so I proved him wrong in the most brutal way possible. Tony Romano, corporate lawyer making $350,000 a year, lives rent-free in my $2.8 million house, drives a BMW, wears $1,000 suits, all funded by money I earned working 16-hour days for 45 years. But last Tuesday, in front of his girlfriend's wealthy Boston parents, he looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, you just eat our food and contribute. Nothing valuable to this household." Those rich folks nodded along like he was speaking gospel truth. I didn't argue, didn't beg, just stared at him for 10 seconds. Then I said, "Interesting perspective, son." What Tony didn't know was that I'd already planned 3 moves that would strip away everything he thought made him valuable. The first phone call changed everything. You want to know why I did what I did? Let me paint you the picture of what my son became. Tony wasn't always like this. When he was little, he'd sit in my kitchen while I made Sunday gravy, asking me to tell him stories about the old country. He'd practice rolling gnocchi with his tiny hands, flour everywhere, laughing when I'd speak Italian to him. That kid died somewhere along the way to law school. The first sign was the name change. Not legally. He's still Antonio Giuseppe Romano on paper. But professionally, Tony Roman, clean, American, forgettable. It's easier for clients to pronounce Dad. Easier to hide, you mean? Then came the photo purge. Our family pictures. My parents' wedding in Naples, his baptism at Saints, Peter and Paul, holiday dinners with cousins, all disappeared from the living room, replaced with generic art from West Elm. 47 years of family history erased. The house needs to look more contemporary for when Bethany's colleagues visit. Bethany, his girlfriend of 2 years. Old money, Boston family. Trust fund baby who thinks marinara sauce comes from a jar that costs $12 at Whole Foods. But the worst part? The introductions. Last November, Tony threw a dinner party, invited 8 people from his law firm, Morrison, Whitfield, and Associates. Big shot corporate lawyers, just like him. I was in the kitchen making sure they had enough wine when I heard him talking to his managing partner. "Oh, that's Joe. He helps with building maintenance around here. Building maintenance. 40 years I owned Romano's Kitchen on Columbus Avenue. 40 years I fed half of North Beach, employed 32 people, put my son through Stanford Law School. Now I'm the help." I didn't say anything that night, just refilled their glasses and listened to them discuss their ski trips to Aspen, their weekend houses in Napa, their children's private schools. But I started paying attention to the patterns. Every time someone asked about me, same story. Joe takes care of the property. Never my father. Never the man who sacrificed everything so I could wear $1,000 suits. The house itself became a museum of his shame. My mother's crucifix from the hallway, gone. The copper pasta machine I brought from Italy in 1973, hidden in the basement. The framed review from the San Francisco Chronicle calling Romano's Kitchen a North Beach treasure. Nowhere to be found. Instead, Tony filled the walls with his Harvard diplomas, his bar admission certificate, photos of him shaking hands with judges and politicians. Look how American I am. Look how far I've risen above my immigrant father. The money part hurt too. I sold Romano's in 2019 for $1.2 million. Retirement fund, I thought. Maybe travel a little, see my cousins back in Naples. Take it easy after 45 years of 16-hour days. But Tony had other plans. "Dad, you should invest that money in the house. Renovations will increase the value. It's the smart financial move." So I did. New kitchen, custom cabinets, hardwood floors, landscaping, $430,000 in improvements. Tony picked out everything. Minimalist, modern, soulless. Know what he said when it was finished? "Finally looks like a place I can bring clients to." Not "thank you, Dad." Not "I appreciate you investing your life savings in our home." Just satisfaction that he'd successfully erased the last traces of where he came from. The social media stuff was almost funny, if it wasn't so pathetic. Bethany's Instagram account, 300,000 followers, constantly featuring our beautiful San Francisco home. Never mentioned who owned it. Never mentioned who paid for those organic flowers in the foyer or the artisanal cheese platters for her influencer friends. Just grateful for this amazing space. And home is where the heart is. My heart built that space, sweetheart. My heart and every dollar I earned flipping burgers at dawn, prepping vegetables until midnight, standing on concrete floors until my feet bled. But the breaking point came 3 months ago. Bethany's parents were visiting from Boston, William and Margaret Crawford. Old Yankee money, the kind that's been American since the Mayflower. I was excited. Finally, a chance to show them real Italian hospitality. I spent 6 hours making traditional Sunday gravy San Marzano tomatoes, imported from Naples, fresh basil from my garden, sausage from Molinari's. $400 worth of ingredients, prepared with 49 years of experience. I'd made enough for 8 people, figured we'd have a real family dinner, share stories, get to know each other, maybe show them the photo albums from the old days. Instead, Tony met me at the kitchen door. Dad, we're ordering from Atelier Cren tonight. This is an important dinner for my relationship with Bethany's family. $350 for pretentious French food when I'd just spent all day making enough pasta to feed half the neighborhood. What about the gravy? Put it in containers. We'll eat it later this week. We never did. I found those containers in the garbage 3 days later, untouched. That's when I knew my son wasn't coming back. The little boy who used to help me fold ravioli, who'd beg for extra meatballs, who'd translate for his friends when they came to the restaurant. That boy was gone. In his place stood a stranger wearing my son's face, living in my house, ashamed of everything that made him possible. But I wasn't done learning just how deep his contempt ran. The worst was yet to come. March 15th, 2024. The night everything changed forever. Bethany's parents were in town for their second visit. This time, Tony didn't even pretend to want my help with dinner. They had reservations at Le Bernardin, $420 per person, not including wine. I wasn't invited. Dad, this is really more of a business dinner. William has connections at some major corporations that could benefit my practice. Business dinner at 9 p.m. on a Friday night with your girlfriend's parents. I understand, son. I'll make myself something simple. Actually, there's leftover Chinese food in the fridge from yesterday. You can just heat that up. Leftover Chinese food. While my son and his girlfriend's family ate at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, using money I'd given him for household expenses. But around 10:30, they came back to the house. I heard the front door open, heard Bethany's mother's voice echoing through the hallway. Oh my goodness, Tony, this place is even more beautiful at night with all the lighting. I was in the kitchen cleaning up from my simple dinner of reheated lo mein when they walked in. Tony first, then Bethany, then her parents. William Crawford, tall and thin with silver hair, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Margaret Crawford, perfectly styled, carrying a handbag I recognized from Bethany's Instagram Hermes, around $12,000. They were all laughing about something from dinner, some story about their yacht club back in Boston. I tried to slip out quietly, give them their space, but Margaret noticed me. Oh, hello there. You must be Joe. At least you remembered my name from their last visit. Good evening, Mrs. Crawford. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. It was divine. Tony has such excellent taste in restaurants. Tony jumped in quickly. Dad was just finishing up in the kitchen. He was about to head upstairs. But William Crawford was looking around the space, admiring the custom cabinets I'd paid for, the Italian marble countertops, the professional-grade appliances. This is really quite impressive, Tony. The renovation work is top-notch. Must have cost a fortune. Here it comes, I thought. Here's where Tony acknowledges that I paid for all of this. Here's where he shows a little pride in his old man's generosity. Instead, he said, Yeah, we invested heavily in the space. Really transformed it from what it used to be. We invested. Margaret was opening the refrigerator, looking for sparkling water. She found the containers of leftover pasta I'd made earlier in the week. The good stuff, homemade pappardelle with bolognese that takes 8 hours to make properly. Oh my, someone's been cooking. This looks delicious. Before Tony could stop me, I said, I made that on Tuesday. Traditional recipe from my mother's family in Naples. Would you like to try some? I could heat it up. The look Tony gave me could have frozen the San Francisco Bay. Dad, they just finished eating at Le Bernardin. I'm sure they're quite full, but Margaret seemed genuinely interested. Actually, I'd love to try a small portion. I've been trying to learn more about authentic Italian cooking. I started moving toward the stove, excited to share something real with these people, something that came from my heart instead of a restaurant check. Dad, Tony's voice was sharp, final. They don't need you to cook for them. You've done enough. Like feeding people was a burden, like hospitality was an inconvenience. But I stopped, turned around, faced my son and his girlfriend's parents in the kitchen I'd paid to renovate, surrounded by the appliances I'd bought, standing on the floors I'd installed. That's when William Crawford asked the question that destroyed everything. So, Joe, what's your role here exactly? Are you Tony's business partner, or? The pause stretched forever. This was Tony's moment. His chance to say, "That's my father." His chance to show an ounce of respect for the man who'd made his entire life possible. Instead, Tony looked his future father-in-law in the eye and said, "Joe lives here, but honestly, he just eats our food and doesn't contribute anything valuable to the household." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret Crawford's face went pale. William cleared his throat uncomfortably. Bethany stared at the floor. And me? I stood there for exactly 10 seconds, processing what I'd just heard. My son, the boy I'd worked myself to the bone for, the child I'd sacrificed my health, my social life, my relationship with my extended family for, the kid I'd put through the most expensive schools in California. He'd just told his girlfriend's parents that I was a worthless mouth to feed. In my own kitchen, in my own house, using furniture I'd bought, eating food I'd paid for, surrounded by luxuries my 45 years of restaurant work had provided. Finally, I spoke. "Interesting perspective, son." My voice was calm, steady. But something had shifted in that room, and everyone felt it. Tony tried to backtrack. "Dad, I didn't mean—" No. You meant exactly what you said." I looked at William and Margaret Crawford. These people my son was so desperate to impress. "Enjoy your evening, folks. I have some phone calls to make." I walked upstairs to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat down at my desk. Then I opened my laptop and started making the 3 most important phone calls of my life. To Naples, to my lawyer, and to my real estate agent. By morning, my ungrateful son's world would start falling apart. Saturday morning, March 16th, 6 a.m. sharp. I was already dressed and sitting at my kitchen table when Tony stumbled downstairs, still in his pajamas, looking for coffee. Bethany and her parents had left the night before, cut their visit short after that dinner conversation. Funny how quickly people flee when they witness real family dysfunction. "Dad, about last night?" "Coffee's fresh," I said, not looking up from my newspaper. "Made it 20 minutes ago." He poured himself a cup, added his organic oat milk that costs $8 a half gallon. Sat down across from me like we were going to have some heart-to-heart conversation. "I think we should talk about what happened." "Nothing happened, son." "You told the truth. I respect honesty." That threw him off. He was expecting an argument, tears maybe, some kind of emotional scene he could dismiss as Dad being dramatic. Instead, I folded my newspaper, finished my coffee, and stood up. "I have some errands to run today." "Don't wait up for dinner." My first stop was Heritage Bank on Montgomery Street. Account manager named Patricia Williams. Been handling my money for 12 years. Professional woman, always treated me with respect. Remembered details about my family. "Mr. Romano, good to see you. How can I help you today?" "I need to understand exactly what my house is worth, Patricia. Current market value." She pulled up the records on her computer. 2.8 million, just like I thought. Property values in North Beach had exploded since I bought the place in 1985 for $89,000. "Are you considering selling?" "Considering, yes. If I did sell, how quickly could it close?" "In this market?" "Cash offer, no contingencies?" 30 days, maybe less." I nodded, made a mental note. Next stop, Immigration Law Offices of Chen and Associates on Bush Street. I'd done my research online, found the best firm in the city for family reunification cases. Attorney named David Chen, 40-something, sharp dresser, came from immigrant family himself. Understood the situation immediately when I explained what I needed. "You want to sponsor 4 family members from Italy." "Cousins, you said?" "Marco, Sofia, Giuseppe Jr., and Lucia Romano. Ages 19 to 28. All unmarried, no criminal records, college educated, or in college. I have their documentation." And I'd spent 3 hours on the phone with my cousin Salvatore in Naples the night before, getting all the details, making sure everyone was willing to make the move. Mr. Romano, this is going to be expensive. Filing fees, legal costs, travel expenses, settlement funds. We're looking at roughly 85,000 per family member, 340,000 total, minimum. Money's not the problem. And you understand the commitment? You're financially responsible for them for several years. Housing, health insurance, job assistance, if needed. I understand completely. Third stop, Coldwell Banker on Union Street. Real estate agent named Jennifer Martinez, high-energy woman in her 40s, knew the North Beach market inside and out. Mr. Romano, I haven't seen you since you sold the restaurant. How's retirement treating you? It's been educational, Jennifer. I need to discuss selling my house. Her eyes lit up. She knew the property, knew what it was worth. That's a beautiful home. Prime location, recent renovations. Are you looking to downsize? Something like that. I need this done quickly and quietly. Cash buyers only. No inspections, no financing contingencies, 30-day close, maximum. I can have buyers lined up by Monday. Market's still crazy hot for properties in that price range. Perfect. One more thing I don't want my son to know until the papers are signed. Jennifer raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. Understood. We'll handle everything through my office. Final stop, Wells Fargo, different branch from my usual one. Opened a new account, separate from anything Tony might have access to. Transferred $500,000 as a starter fund. By 4 p.m., I was back home. Tony was in the living room, watching college basketball, feet up on the coffee table like he owned the place. How were your errands, Dad? Productive. That evening, I made dinner for one. Spaghetti aglio e olio, simple and perfect. Tony was out with Bethany, probably at some trendy cocktail bar, spending money he hadn't earned on drinks that cost more than my father made in a week. While I ate, I reviewed the documents David Chen had given me. Immigration forms, financial requirements, timeline for the visa process. Everything looked straightforward. My phone buzzed. Text message from Jennifer Martinez. Already have 3 serious inquiries. Can we schedule showings for tomorrow afternoon? I texted back. Yes? Sunday 2 to 4 p.m. Sun will be out. I knew Tony's schedule better than he did. Every Sunday, he and Bethany went to some overpriced brunch place in the Mission, then spent the afternoon shopping or visiting galleries. Never home before 6. Perfect. Sunday would be the beginning of the end of Tony's comfortable life, but he still didn't know it yet. Sunday, March 17th, the day I sold my son's future. Tony and Bethany left for brunch at 11:30, just like every weekend. Off to spend $60 on avocado toast and mimosas while discussing their engagement plans. They'd been talking about it for months. Destination wedding in Tuscany, naturally. Nothing says I've made it like getting married in the country your father fled from poverty. Jennifer Martinez arrived at 1:45 with 3 potential buyers. I watched from my bedroom window as they pulled up in their luxury cars, Tesla Model S, BMW X7, Mercedes G-Wagon. Tech money, finance money, old money, the kind of buyers who could write a check today and close next week. First showing, young tech couple, late 30s, 2 kids. Just sold their startup to Google for $40 million. They walked through the house like they were already measuring for furniture. The kitchen renovation is gorgeous, the wife said, running her hands over the marble countertops I'd paid for, and this location walking distance to everything in North Beach. We could be in escrow by Tuesday, the husband told Jennifer. Second showing, investment banker from Goldman Sachs, looking for something impressive to entertain clients. Single guy, early 40s, more money than sense. This place has real character, he said, admiring the crown molding. Not like those sterile condos downtown. I'll offer asking price, cash, no inspection. Third showing, family with teenage kids, moving from New York. Father ran a hedge fund. Mother was some kind of art dealer. They spent 20 minutes just in the living room, talking about how perfect it would be for hosting dinner parties. The previous owner clearly had excellent taste, the mother said. If she only knew the previous owner was standing upstairs, listening to every word. By 4:15, all 3 showings were done. Jennifer found me in the kitchen, practically buzzing with excitement. Mr. Romano, I've never seen anything like this. 3 cash offers, all at or above asking price. The tech couple offered 2.5 2.9 million. The banker offered 3 even. The hedge fund family offered 2.85 but want to close in 2 weeks. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. I'll take the hedge fund family. 2 weeks works better for my timeline. Don't you want to think about it? Sleep on it? The other offers are higher. Money's not the point here, Jennifer. Timing is everything. We shook hands. By 5 p.m., I'd signed a purchase agreement for $2,850,000. Closing date, April 2nd, 2024. That night, while Tony was at some wine bar with Bethany, I made my second round of phone calls to Naples. Spoke to Marco first. He was working as a chef in a restaurant outside Naples, making barely enough to live on, sharing a tiny apartment with 2 roommates. Zio Giuseppe, are you serious? You really want to sponsor me to come to America? Dead serious, Marco. I need family around me, real family. Next was Sophia, studying nursing but struggling to pay for school. Then Giuseppe Jr., my cousin Salvatore's boy. Brilliant kid studying engineering but stuck in a dead-end part-time job. Finally, Lucia, the youngest, an art student with more talent than opportunities. 4 conversations, 4 life-changing offers, 4 enthusiastic acceptances. When? Marco asked. Visas should be approved by June. You could be here by summer. By Wednesday, David Chen had filed all the immigration paperwork. Thursday, I transferred the first installment of legal fees, $68,000. Friday, I put a deposit down on a studio apartment in the Sunset District. 600 square feet, $1,800 a month. Perfect for a 70-year-old man who didn't need much space. The whole week, Tony suspected nothing. He was busy with some big case at work, barely home except to sleep and change clothes. When he was around, he treated me the same as always, polite but distant, like I was a piece of furniture he'd inherited. Saturday morning, March 23rd, Jennifer called with an update. Buyers are ready to do a final walkthrough Monday morning. Everything's on track for April 2nd closing. Perfect. Just remember, my son doesn't know yet. Your secret's safe with me. That afternoon, I started packing. Not everything, just the important stuff. Photos of my parents, my restaurant awards, the copper pasta machine, my mother's crucifix, the things Tony had hidden away, the things he was ashamed of. Everything that mattered to me fit in 3 cardboard boxes. Everything that mattered to him was about to disappear forever. But first, I had some family members to welcome to America. The real show was just beginning. June 15th, 2024. San Francisco International Airport, Terminal G. I stood at the arrivals gate holding 4 signs with names Tony hadn't heard in 15 years. Marco Romano, Sofia Romano, Giuseppe Romano, Junior, Lucia Romano. My family, my real family, the people who still remembered where they came from. The first one through customs was Marco, 28 years old, built like a boxer, carrying a single duffel bag and a wooden case that I knew contained his great-grandmother's pasta tools. He spotted me immediately. We had the same nose, same stubborn jawline. Zio Giuseppe! He dropped his bag and wrapped me in a hug that nearly cracked my ribs. Real emotion, real gratitude. When was the last time my own son had hugged me like that? Marco, welcome to America. I still can't believe this is happening. 3 months ago, I was washing dishes in Napoli for €8 an hour. Now you're going to show San Francisco what real Italian cooking looks like. Sophia came next, 24 years old, carrying medical textbooks and a rosary that belonged to our grandmother. She cried when she saw me, actual tears of joy. Zio, I've been studying English for 6 months, but I'm still nervous about my accent. Your accent is beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you different. Giuseppe Jr., everyone called him Pepe was third. 22 years old, engineering degree from University of Naples, spoke perfect English with a slight British accent from watching too many BBC documentaries. Uncle Joe, I brought something for you. He opened his carry-on and pulled out a framed photo, my father as a young man, standing outside the original Romano family restaurant in Naples, 1952. I'd never seen this picture before. Nonno Salvatore had it in his attic. Thought you should have it. My hands were shaking as I took the frame. My father, dead 23 years now, looking exactly like Tony did at that age. The resemblance was startling. Lucia was last, 19 years old, art student, carrying a portfolio case covered in stickers from every museum in Italy. She was shy but determined, spoke careful English with that beautiful, rolling accent I'd grown up hearing. Uncle Giuseppe, thank you for this chance. I promise I won't waste it. Sweetheart, your family. Family doesn't waste opportunities, they create them. The drive back to the city was chaos in the best possible way. Four young people speaking rapid Italian, pointing at everything, asking a million questions about San Francisco, about opportunities, about their new life. Marco wanted to know about the restaurant scene. Sophia asked about nursing schools. Pepe was fascinated by the tech industry. Lucia kept taking photos of the Golden Gate Bridge. Everything Tony had rejected, they embraced. I'd rented a temporary house in the Richmond District 3, bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, modest but comfortable. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. The first permanent address any of them had ever had in America. When we walked in, Sophia immediately went to the kitchen and started making coffee, real Italian coffee, not the watered-down American version Tony preferred. Uncle Joe, Marco said, looking around the simple living room, this is more than enough. You've given us everything. That night, we had dinner together at my little kitchen table. I'd cooked nothing fancy, just spaghetti carbonara, the way my mother taught me. But they ate like it was a feast, talking and laughing, sharing stories about the family back home. Lucia showed me her artwork sketches of Italian street scenes, portraits of our relatives, beautiful drawings that captured something real about our heritage. I want to paint American scenes too, she said, but Italian style, you know? Show people that we bring beauty with us, not just take it. Pepe pulled out his laptop and showed me the business plan he'd written during the flight, a consulting company for Italian businesses wanting to expand to America. I can help them avoid the mistakes, understand the culture, be a bridge between the old country and the new one. Sophia had already researched nursing programs at UCSF and SF State. I want to work in elderly care, take care of people like you, Uncle Joe, people who built something and deserve respect. Marco was the most ambitious. I want to open a restaurant. Not fine dining real food. The kind Nona used to make. Food with soul. What would you call it? I asked. He smiled. Romano's, like you did. Carry on the name with pride. That's when I realized what I'd really done. I hadn't just brought 4 young people to America. I'd brought the Romano legacy back to life. Everything Tony had tried to erase, they wanted to celebrate. Everything he was ashamed of, they wore like a badge of honor. The next morning, I started the process of selling Tony's house. Because there was something he didn't know yet, something that would destroy his carefully constructed world completely. My new family was about to meet my old one, and only one of them was going to survive the encounter. August 3rd, 2024. The day Tony's world collapsed in front of 40 witnesses. Tony had been planning this engagement party for 3 months. Bethany's parents were flying in from Boston. His law partners were coming. The guest list read like a who's who of San Francisco society judges, politicians, tech executives, old money families. The perfect opportunity to show everyone how far he'd risen above his working class roots. He'd hired caterers from Atelier Cren, the same restaurant where he'd taken Bethany's parents that night in March. $12,000 for appetizers and champagne. Another $8,000 for flowers from the most exclusive florist in Pacific Heights. This is going to be the event of the season, Bethany told her Instagram followers. Can't wait to celebrate our love in our beautiful home. Our home. Still calling it that, even though she'd never paid a dime toward the mortgage. I stayed out of their way during the setup. Watched from my bedroom window as workers transformed my backyard into some kind of garden party fantasy. White tents, string lights, rented furniture that cost more per day than most people's weekly salary. Tony was in full control freak mode, directing every detail, making sure everything looked perfect for his big social debut as an engaged man. The bar goes there, not there. I want everyone to have a clear view of the garden when they walk in. Are you sure about these flowers? They need to photograph well for social media. Did someone move that table? Everything needs to be symmetrical. By 6 p.m., the first guests started arriving. I recognized most of them people who'd been to the house before, people who thought I was the hired help. William and Margaret Crawford pulled up in their rental Bentley, dressed like they were attending a state dinner. Tony rushed out to greet them, all smiles and perfect manners. William, Margaret, welcome back to San Francisco. You remember our home, of course. Our home. The house I'd bought with restaurant grease under my fingernails and arthritis in my hands from 40 years of standing on concrete floors. By 7:30, the party was in full swing. 43 people wandering around my backyard, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than I used to make in a day, eating appetizers they couldn't pronounce. I could hear the conversations from my window. Tony introducing Bethany to his managing partner. Discussion of their wedding plans. Destination ceremony in Tuscany. Reception for 200 guests. Honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast. We're thinking September next year, Bethany was saying. Something intimate but elegant. Intimate. 200 guests. That's when I heard the sound that changed everything. A diesel engine rumbling up the street, air brakes hissing. The unmistakable sound of a moving truck stopping right in front of my house. I looked out the window and smiled. Perfect timing. The conversations in the backyard started to die down as people noticed the commotion out front. Through the side gate, I could see guests craning their necks, trying to figure out what was happening. Tony appeared at the front door, still holding his champagne glass, looking confused and annoyed. "Excuse me," he called to the moving crew. "There must be some mistake. We're not moving anywhere." The crew chief, a big guy named Rodriguez, checked his paperwork. "This is 1247 Stockton Street, right? We're here for the Romano job." "Yes, this is Romano, but—" "You, Tony Romano?" "Yes, but I don't understand." "I didn't hire any movers." That's when I stepped onto the front porch. I did. Tony spun around, his face going pale. Behind him I could see his guests starting to gather, drawn by the drama unfolding at the front of the house. "Dad, what's going on?" Rodriguez looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, we have instructions to pack and move everything in the house. Settlements tomorrow morning, and the new owners want to do a walkthrough at noon." "Settlement?" Tony's voice cracked. "What settlement?" I walked down the front steps, stood face to face with my son in front of 43 witnesses, including Bethany's parents, his law partners, and half the social elite of San Francisco. "I sold the house, son." The silence that followed was deafening. Someone's champagne glass hit the ground and shattered. "You... what?" "Sold it. April 2nd, to be exact. The Hendersons' lovely family from New York. Hedge fund money. They're taking possession tomorrow." Tony's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, panic, rage. Behind him, I could see Bethany covering her mouth with both hands, her perfect engagement party crumbling in real time. "Dad, this is impossible. You can't just sell the house without telling me. I live here." "You live here rent-free," I corrected. "Big difference." William Crawford stepped forward, looking like he'd swallowed something sour. "Giuseppe, surely there's been some misunderstanding. Tony and Bethany are engaged. They're planning their future." "Their future," I repeated. "Interesting." I looked around at all these people, these pillars of San Francisco society, these judges and lawyers and trust fund babies who'd been eating my food and drinking my wine for years while treating me like the help. "Tell me, Mr. Crawford, what future exactly? The one where my son continues to live off my generosity while telling people I contribute nothing valuable?" More silence. A few guests started to back away, sensing this was about to get much worse. "Dad, please, not here, not now." "When then, Tony? When would be a good time to discuss how you've spent the last 2 years treating me like hired help in my own house?" But I wasn't done. The real bombshell was still coming. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Since you're all here, I'd like to introduce you to some people." Tony looked confused. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I walked to the side gate and opened it wide. "Marco, Sophia, Pepe, Lucia, come and meet my son's friends." 4 young people stepped into the backyard, and the entire party went silent. My Italian cousins, dressed nicely but simply, carrying themselves with the quiet dignity that comes from knowing exactly who you are and where you come from. Marco stepped forward first, extending his hand to Tony. "You must be Antonio. I'm Marco Romano, your cousin from Naples. Uncle Giuseppe has told us so much about you." Tony stared at the outstretched hand like it was a snake. What?" "These are your family members," I announced to the crowd. "The Romano cousins from Italy. I brought them here with the money from selling this house. Bethany grabbed Tony's arm. Tony, what is he talking about? Sophia stepped forward, her English careful but clear. Mr. Tony, your father, he is a saint. He sponsor us all to come to America. Give us new life. I could see the color draining from Tony's face as the implications hit him. Not only had I sold his house, but I'd used his inheritance to bring over people who represented everything he had tried to escape. Dad, we need to talk privately. No more private conversations, son. These people deserve to know who they've been socializing with. I turned to address the crowd directly. 43 people, including his boss, his girlfriend's parents, and half the legal establishment of San Francisco. You see, my son here has spent the last few years telling people I contribute nothing valuable, that I just eat his food and take up space. Interesting perspective from someone who's never paid rent, never contributed to groceries, never even said thank you. Margaret Crawford whispered something urgent to her husband. Several of Tony's law partners exchanged uncomfortable glances. But here's what Tony forgot to mention during his little character assassination. This house? I bought it in 1985 for $89,000. Every mortgage payment for 39 years came from my restaurant earnings. Every renovation, every improvement, every stick of furniture, my money. Pepe pulled out his phone, showing pictures. Uncle Giuseppe, whoopee? He worked so hard, 16 hours every day for 40 years. We see the photos of his restaurant, all the awards, all the people he feed. That's right, I continued. Romano's Kitchen on Columbus Avenue. 45 years feeding this city. 32 employees. James Beard Award nomination in 2003. But Tony here was embarrassed by all that. Changed his professional name to Tony Roman, hid the family photos, told people I was building maintenance. A murmur went through the crowd. Now, some of these people probably remembered Romano's Kitchen, probably ate there back in the day. So when he looked me in the eye 5 months ago and said I contribute nothing valuable, I decided to show him what valuable really means. Lucia stepped forward, carrying her portfolio case. Uncle Giuseppe, he bring us here, give us everything. American dream, just like that. We will never forget. $2,850,000, I announced. That's what the house sold for. Every penny went to bringing my real family to America. Legal fees, immigration costs, travel expenses, settlement funds, housing, education, business, startup money. Tony finally found his voice. Dad, you can't be serious. That was my inheritance. My future. Your future? I laughed. Son, you threw away your future the moment you decided to be ashamed of the man who gave you everything. William Crawford stepped forward, his face red. Giuseppe, this is highly irregular. Tony had reasonable expectations regarding the family home. Mr. Crawford, Marco interrupted. With respect, Antonio, he had no expectations. Uncle Giuseppe, he owed nothing to anyone who treated him with disrespect. This is insane, Bethany said, her voice shaking. Tony, tell them this is some kind of misunderstanding. But Tony couldn't speak. He was staring at his cousins. These people who looked like him, sounded like the grandmother he'd barely remember, represented everything he'd spent years running from. Actually, Sophia said, pulling out some papers, we have something to show everyone. She handed me a folder. Inside were photographs from the Romano family restaurant in Naples, going back 4 generations. Pictures of Tony's great-grandfather, grandfather, relatives he'd never bothered to learn about. This is our family history, I said, holding up the photos. 4 generations of Romano men and women who built something from nothing, who took pride in feeding people, in hard work, in family loyalty. I looked directly at Tony. Your great-grandfather started with a pushcart in Naples. Your grandfather expanded to a real restaurant. I brought the name to America and made it successful enough to put you through Stanford and Harvard Law. And now, Marco added, we continue the tradition. I'm opening a new Romano's restaurant in North Beach. Sophia is starting nursing school. Pepe has a consulting business. Lucia is enrolled at the Art Institute. All of them grateful, I said. All of them proud of where they come from. All of them willing to work hard and honor the family name instead of hiding from it. The party guests were starting to leave now, sensing this family drama was far from over. Tony's managing partner shook his head and walked away without saying goodbye. 2 of the judges made polite excuses and headed for their cars. Bethany's parents were whispering urgently to each other by the garden gate. Bethany, Margaret Crawford called, We need to leave. Now. Mom, wait. Now, Bethany. I watched as Tony's carefully constructed world crumbled piece by piece, his boss leaving without a word, his future in-laws fleeing like the house was on fire, his girlfriend looking at him like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Tony, Bethany said quietly, we need to talk. She pulled off her engagement ring, $47,000, according to the insurance papers I'd seen, and placed it on the patio table. I can't do this. I can't marry someone who would treat their own father this way. And just like that, she was gone too. Tony stood alone in his expensive suit, surrounded by the ruins of his engagement party, facing 4 Italian cousins who embodied everything he'd tried to escape. Congratulations, son, I said. You got exactly what you wanted. Freedom from your embarrassing immigrant family. Now you're free from everything else too. The moving truck finished loading at 11:30 that night. Tony stood in the empty living room, staring at the walls where our family photos used to hang before he took them down. The house echoed now, no furniture, no belongings, nothing left of the life he'd built on my foundation. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. That's not my problem anymore, son. Rodriguez, the crew chief, handed me the final paperwork. Everything's loaded, Mr. Romano. We'll deliver to your new place in the Richmond tomorrow morning. Thank you, Rodriguez. There's a bonus in there for working so late. As the truck pulled away, Tony's phone started buzzing. Text messages, missed Powell's social media notifications. Word travels fast in San Francisco's legal circles, especially when it involves public humiliation. I could see him reading the messages, his face getting paler with each one. Dad, my phone is blowing up. Someone posted video from tonight on Instagram. Bethany's friends were filming the whole thing. Of course they were. Rich kids document everything, especially drama. How many views? He checked. 47,000 and climbing. Someone tagged it hashtag engagement party meltdown and hashtag Italian justice. The irony was perfect. Tony had spent years crafting his image on social media, carefully curating his success story. Now the internet was destroying that image in real time. My cousins had gone back to their temporary housing in the Richmond, but not before each of them shook Tony's hand goodbye. Professional courtesy, the kind of grace he'd never shown me. Antonio, Marco had said, if you ever want to learn about your family, about where you really come from, you call me, okay? Tony just nodded, unable to speak. By midnight, we were alone in the empty house. Tony sitting on the floor where his expensive couch used to be, me standing by the window, watching the new owner's moving truck pull up outside. The Hendersons are eager to get settled, I said. Nice family. 3 kids, 2 dogs. The kind of people who'll actually live here instead of treating it like a museum. Dad, please. There has to be some way to fix this. Fix what exactly? Everything. The house, Bethany, my job situation. Your job situation? He showed me his phone. 3 missed calls from his managing partner, Harold Morrison. 2 emails marked urgent. Morrison wants to see me first thing Monday morning. This kind of publicity. It doesn't look good for the firm. Morrison, Whitfield, and Associates. One of the most conservative law firms in the city. They prided themselves on discretion, respectability, old-fashioned values. Having a partner's engagement party turn into a viral family meltdown wasn't exactly on brand. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to publicly humiliate your father. Tony's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Bethany. I'm staying at my parents' hotel tonight. We need to talk tomorrow, but I need time to process what happened. I had no idea you felt that way about your father. He looked up at me. She's thinking about calling off the engagement completely. Smart woman. I always liked her better than you deserved. Dad, what do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I was embarrassed. Can we move past this now? But that's the thing about consequences. They don't care about apologies. Son, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about character, about who you chose to become when you thought nobody was watching. At 12:45, my phone rang. Jennifer Martinez, my real estate agent, calling with an update. Mr. Romano, I just wanted to confirm closing went perfectly. The Hendersons are thrilled with the house. They wanted me to thank you for leaving it in such beautiful condition. My pleasure, Jennifer. Also, there's been some interest in your story. A reporter from the Chronicle wants to interview you about the family reunification angle. Apparently, the video from tonight is trending on TikTok. I looked at Tony, who had heard every word. Tell them I'll consider it. After I hung up, Tony stared at me like I was a stranger. You're enjoying this? I'm finding it educational. Educational how? Watching you discover what happens when you burn bridges. Turns out you need them to get back where you came from. By Sunday morning, the story had exploded beyond social media. The Chronicle ran a piece titled, Italian Immigrant Sells, Home to Reunite Family After Son's Betrayal. The San Francisco Business Journal covered the legal implications. Food and Wine wrote about the return of authentic Italian cuisine to North Beach. Tony's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, gossip bloggers, even a producer from some reality TV show about family drama. But the call that changed everything came at 2 p.m. Harold Morrison, senior partner at Tony's firm. Tony, we need to talk. My office, Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. After he hung up, Tony looked at me with something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Genuine fear. I think I'm about to lose my job. Probably. Dad, I'm 33 years old. I've got law school loans, credit card debt, a car payment. Without this job, you'll figure it out. Smart guy like you, Stanford education, all those connections you've been building. But we both knew the truth. In a city like San Francisco, reputation was everything. And his reputation was currently getting destroyed in real time by thousands of strangers who'd watched him disrespect his immigrant father. There has to be something I can do. There is. He looked up, hopeful. You can learn. 6 months later, December 2024. I'm sitting in Marco's new restaurant, Romano's Kitchen 2, watching my nephew teach a cooking class to 12 eager students. Same copper pasta machine I brought from Italy in 1973. Same family recipes, same pride in the craft, but everything else is different now. The restaurant is packed every night. Sophia graduated from her nursing program with honors, now works at UCSF taking care of elderly patients who remind her of me. Pepe's consulting business has 6 clients, all Italian companies expanding into American markets. Lucia's art is hanging in a gallery in the Mission, paintings that celebrate our heritage instead of hiding from it. My cousins call me every Sunday. Real conversations. Not the polite small talk I used to get from Tony. They ask about my health, share their dreams, include me in their decisions. They treat me like family because that's what I am to them. Tony lost his job at Morrison, Whitfield & Associates 3 days after our confrontation. Harold Morrison cited conduct unbecoming the firm's values and damage to professional reputation. Translation: viral videos of family dysfunction don't mix well with corporate law. He's working at a smaller firm now, personal injury cases mostly, making about 60% of his old salary. Bethany broke off their engagement permanently after her parents threatened to cut her off if she married that awful man who treats his father like garbage. She's dating a tech executive now. Posted the announcement on Instagram with the caption, "Finally found someone who shares my values." Tony tried to reconcile last month. Showed up at Marco's restaurant during dinner service. Asked if we could talk. He looked different. Humbler, maybe. Older. The kind of tired that comes from learning hard lessons. Dad, I understand what you were trying to teach me. Do you? I threw away everything that mattered for people who never really cared about me. I nodded. That's a start. Is there any way... Could we maybe try again? I looked around the restaurant. My real family laughing with customers, sharing stories, building something beautiful and authentic. Then I looked at my son, this stranger who happened to share my blood. Tony, you're always welcome at Sunday dinner, but you come as yourself, not as Tony Roman. You come ready to remember where you came from. And if I can't do that, then you stay lost. He left without ordering anything. I haven't seen him since, but Marco saved him a seat anyway, just in case. Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up.